right, welcome to the Village of Cottage Grove Village Board of Trustees meeting on Monday, December 1st, 2025. This meeting is a hybrid meeting, both virtually on Zoom and streamed on our YouTube channel, and then also in person at Village Hall. The link to the Zoom is on the top of the agenda. It is 6:30, so I'll call the meeting to order. We have a quorum and the agenda was properly posted, so we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're on item 4, the public appearances, public's opportunity to speak. So this is the portion of the meeting, of the opportunity for community members to share comments or concerns. But note that it's not a dialogue between us and you. Each speaker has up to 3 minutes. We'll use an official timer tonight. Matt, if you could do that. And we ask that everyone be respectful of the viewpoints of others. So we're going to begin with individuals who have submitted requests to speak forms and are present at tonight's meeting. We'll open it up to anyone else, either in the room or on Zoom. Make sure everyone has their opportunity. So the first form I have here is a Zachary Foy.
One quick thing, can we turn the screen so they can see the timer? Turn that screen towards them so they can see it, or? So, right. Yeah, thank you.
And I'll raise my hand if you run out of time and you don't notice the timer. And then if you could just state your name, your address, and all right, sounds good. And then just also use the microphone and make sure it's on. So you just press the little guy that's speaking. There you go.
Start by introducing myself. My name is Zach Foy, and I've been living in the town of Cottage Grove since 2019 with my wife, Allie. We've enjoyed raising our children in this community since moving here. We've been owners of 2 different homes in the township. Our first home was in Heritage Hills over in Conestoga Trail, and we currently reside at 4593 Kennedy Road, the parcel that meets up with the northeast corner of the proposed development concept plan. My wife and I have fallen in love with this area since we moved here. We're close enough to town that it isn't a hassle to run to the store for a forgotten ingredient, but far enough away that the bustle of the main thoroughfares of town to really enjoy a sense of peace and quiet where we're at. The people in our neighborhood, while all friendly and respectful, always seem to appreciate and value the privacy that comes with living in our rural neighborhood. Came across the development plan concept over the weekend, so I've only had a few days to digest it amongst family get-togethers, work, parenting, etc. But with this limited time slot, I'll voice the most concerning parts of the plan, which are the complete encapsulation of the Bannigan farm with no courtesy call from the developers, the imbalance of lot sizes as compared to the lot sizes of our neighborhood, and the 2 dead-end streets on the east end of the plan. Bannigan Farm, I don't know them all that well. I know Tom through some light farming and construction conversations, and my wife knows Kim through volunteering at the polls with her. Through our limited interactions with the Bannigans, it's obvious that they have been a great productive members of this community for many years, and I truly hope that they are made whole with this abrupt change to their lifestyle. And the dead-end streets in the plan, I haven't had a chance to speak with any of my neighbors, so speaking for myself, more traffic eventually coming through our neighborhood via those additional streets would be a net negative to us. We really enjoy the lack of vehicle noise and traffic where we're at, so I am not looking for that fact to change. And then neighborhood balance of the proposed plat development. Ultimately, the development of this parcel seems that it's going to be inevitable. The fact that it's been in the long-term plan for some time now. My best suggestion would be to get more green space, trees, open area on the east end of this development. Basically, the way it looks now is packing them in like sardines as much as they can, as many lots as we can. There are some bigger lots on the other side, but we enjoy our rural neighborhood, and yeah, would like to see a softer transition between the suburban neighborhood coming in and the rural neighborhood that's been there for years. Thank you.
Casey Erlinson.
Casey Erlinson, 721 Cresthaven Drive in the Village. Good evening, trustees. I am here once again to express strong support for this new housing development proposal because once again, this is exactly the kind of opportunity our community has been planning for and asking for and frankly needing. We are looking at another $100+ million investment. It seemed like it was somewhere in the range of 125 to 150 million with the estimates with where it's currently at. This isn't an impulse project or something that came out of nowhere. It aligns directly and specifically with our comprehensive plan. It's something that's been envisioned for years, even decades, I think was a comment made at a previous meeting. And it's the kind of thoughtful, balanced growth that we want for the village. And this development brings meaningful tax relief for the entire community. It adds a new park. That area sorely needs it. I know there's been several comments about the park desert in the area. It pays for the water lift station that will be temporarily required in that area, regardless of what eventually gets built. And I urge you to listen to the staff experts on that particular need, how it's going to be phased out after some time, but it has to get done some way or another. These are major public costs that would otherwise fall on our taxpayers, and instead this development absorbs a significant portion of these. This is responsible growth, predictable growth, the exact growth we outlined again in our long-term comprehensive planning. And so I want to say this clearly because we've been through these consequences before. We can't afford a repeat of the sports complex debacle. We saw what happens when the villages, when specifically the village's constituents say yes, the comprehensive plan says yes, the staff say yes, and yet the board, reacting to voices from outside the village and from outside of the transaction initially say no. That hesitation nearly cost us an enormous opportunity, and it's something that our residents overwhelmingly supported. I certainly understand that we need to be respectful of all viewpoints in and out of the village, our neighbors and things like that, but that doesn't mean that the needs of the few get to outweigh the needs of the many. The concerns and objections that I saw at the Plan Commission and the previous board meetings are, once again, the same sort of hesitancies about traffic, parking, and emergency services. We can't solve these problems by refusing tax money. We just can't, and I'm tired of seeing trustees bring them up as though sitting by and denying projects is ever going to resolve them. It's just not how municipal services work. We can't keep letting short-sighted thinking get in the way of long-term gains. We've already made ourselves clear as village residents that the village, who you were elected to represent, does want this kind of development. Because again, this development is good for our tax base, it's good for our infrastructure, it's good for our families and the future of the village of Cottage Grove. It's exactly what we said we wanted, and we have another chance to follow through. So I urge you to approve this project and keep our community moving forward. Thank you.
We do have wish to speak forms from individuals who submitted and are not present here. But I'll open it up to anyone else in the room that would like to speak in person. You can come up to the microphone. And then we'll hop over to Zoom, and then I'll read the other forms.
I'm Mylene Hillison. I live at 109 East School Road, and I don't want to see this project approved, mainly because the traffic on East School Road is horrendous right now. This summer we've had dump trucks up and down the street. No one pays attention to the 25-mile speed limit. Also, with 200 and some more homes coming into the neighborhood, it means our schools are going to be crowded again. And more low housing will probably come back in too. So I moved here in 2017 because it was a small community. It was a nice little village. And now it's just got, it's just growing like it is in Sun Prairie. So maybe we'll just annex ourselves right into Sun Prairie. But like I said, I don't approve of this annex for more housing.
Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak? Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak? Oh.
I would like to speak.
Wait. Go ahead.
I thank the village board for the opportunity to speak tonight. As a new homeowner adjacent to this proposed development, I'd like to voice my strong opposition to the annexation of the 120 acres east of Ford Ridge. I have recently moved to Cottage Grove from Wilmington, North Carolina, and have witnessed firsthand over the past 35 years the negative impacts associated with annexation and developments of this magnitude on a small town. The developments all submitted their traffic studies, environmental impact statements, stormwater, and subdivision plans, all of which were presented by attorneys confirming they all followed the current federal, state, and county development codes. The positive result was that it increased the tax base. The negative result, by approving these developments prior to the necessary infrastructure in place, the roads became parking lots, the schools are overcrowded and ranked 48th in the country, the waterfront became inaccessible, overcrowding boat ramps and parks make them unusable. The biggest victim of this overdevelopment was surely the environment. A few green areas are existing in the Wilmington area, and Wilmington has lost all the charm that I was enamored with when I chose it as my home. That said, I would like to say I'm not anti-development. On the contrary, I'm a licensed land planner and landscape architect, also licensed in the state of Wisconsin, who has designed sustainable communities all over the world. This proposed land plan has been drawn on a grid to maximize the number of lots in accordance with the subdivision code. Other than the interconnectivity to the adjoining neighborhoods, it has no relation to sense of place, natural topography, natural water courses, trail systems, road hierarchy, conservation of natural and cultural elements, view corridors, and all other elements that create a truly great community. The growth of the village of Cottage Grove is inevitable. And I know by insisting that developers prepare land plans that work with the village's visions of growth is the best avenue for that growth. I hope this annexation, if approved, is not the benchmark to which to start. Thank you.
My name is Mike. I do understand that the development was in the comprehensive plan. I knew that when I moved into my house 11 years ago. I would just ask that the board respects the rural development that's been there and existed for 30 or 40 years at least. In the vision of this development to include green spaces, lot sizes that would be adjacent to the rural properties. I also noticed the dead-end road heading east out of the property towards the direction of Whiting Road. I haven't seen any information about how this development would impact Kennedy Road, if there would be connections eventually, and that would be good information for us to have going forward. Thank you.
Right. Is there anyone else on Zoom that would like to speak?
I would like to speak.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Lorene Gage, 501 Progress Drive in the Village, and I am here in support of the Newman project. I'm also here as a resident that really cares about a thoughtful, balanced mix of housing that reflects what our community has said it needs. In June of 2025, we conducted a community housing survey. And in that survey, it showed that people in Cottage Grove are looking for more owner-occupied housing, first-time home buyer options, and single-family homes on modest lots. And there was very clear feedback that residents preferred this type of housing over additional apartment developments. And the Newman proposal aligns with this. While prices may vary with this project, this development still adds the type of houses that people said they wanted, which was owner-occupied, single-family options that can serve families at different stages of their life. This project also supports natural housing turnover. So as long-term residents look to downsize or transition into different type of housing, new housing options create openings for them while freeing up existing homes for younger families and first-time homebuyers. This creates a healthy housing cycle that keeps Cottage Grove stable and multi-generational. Another important factor is the tax base. So single-family owner-occupied homes provide long-term, steady revenue that helps the village maintain services and plan responsibly for the future. Growth that happens without existing boundaries like this project supports financial stability without the additional infrastructure costs that come with expanding outward. Let's talk about the school board or school district, I'm sorry. Their positive impact on this. So these type of homes lend to attract families who are invested in the community and the school system, maintaining consistent enrollment. That's important for long-term planning, funding, and the ability to offer strong academic and extracurricular programs. In addition to this, we know that employment growth is coming, right? With Amazon developing in the region and other local employers that are expanding, Cottage Grove will continue to feel increased demand for nearby owner-occupied housing. And so having a range of homes available helps ensure that people around working in and around the community have the opportunity to live here, put down roots, and participate in our village. Finally, this project fits with the village's planning principles around infill development and making the best use of land within the current village footprint. This supports walkability, keeps residents connected to services, and helps manage the cost of infrastructure and public services. For all of these reasons, the alignment with community preferences, the support for natural housing transitions, the positive impact on the tax base in schools, and the need for additional owner-occupied options as regional employment grows, I believe this development will be a positive addition to Cottage Grove. Thank you.
Is there anyone else on Zoom that would like to speak? Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak? Okay. We did have submissions. The first one is Lisa Zwartz, which is 1002 St. John Street in the Village, in favor of the Lindstrom development. Has lived here for the last 23 years in Quarry Ridge. And even though her kids are grown, she still thinks it's a great development that's willing to pay for infrastructure, taxes, park space. Stefan Wahe, 100 Quail Parkway, is a village resident, writing in favor of the pre-annexation agreement, support for the developer paying the necessary infrastructure for development in the park space and the long-term tax revenue. It also addresses the housing shortage in Dane County. Michelle Steffens, 308 Dublin Circle, is a village resident, is speaking in favor of the Quarry Ridge development. Also wrote an email to the village board that we all have, just summarizing hers. It's benefits the tax base and wishes that the village residents have the final voice here. We also had a wish to speak for Abby McDowell, 208 Heather Drive, also sent the similar email, is against the concept presentation for the Monona Grove School District regarding the potential site plan amendment at Cottage Grove School.
She is online, but did she want to speak?
She's not want to speak. Yeah, that's okay. And is against spending the village dollars for the 30-car park pickup drop-off queue on Main Street, and the estimated savings from consolidating the two schools, questions what would happen in the next 5 to 10 years. And then David Bayer, maybe you said that wrong, 202 West Main Street in Sun Prairie, is able to speak and answer questions, is regarding item 7B, which is one of the lease agreements on the agenda for tonight. Moving up, correspondence, we received quite a bit of correspondence, and the village board was copied on all of the emails that came in regarding the proposed Lindstrom development and pre-annexation agreements. And so the village board did receive all of those emails in their inbox today. And we do have those scanned into the public record as well. So I'll just ask one more time if anyone else would like to give public comment tonight, either on Zoom or in the room. I just don't want to miss anyone. Yep. Yep.
I don't think anybody here is, we're not going to stop expansion in Cottage Grove. It's not what anybody's saying. It's just, there's a time to jump in and there's a time to dunk a toe. I just want to make sure that we're seeing where we're actually coming from. And the people that this is going to affect, last week, you guys brought it up, Paul Severson especially. They wanted to see them reach out to Tom Bannigan and Kim. 2 weeks, nothing. We requested it. They still haven't reached out. I mean, what else are they going to do or not follow through that we want, requests that we have? There's certain things that they said last week, possibly moving garages in the back of the houses in alleys. I think that would give it more of like a Madison feel. I don't think that's what we want to go with. The idea of a garage is to park your car. They're usually in the front of a house. They also allow a sound barrier from roads. So I just want to make sure that this is going to be something that moving forward really benefits everybody and isn't just an eyesore. It's not going to be duplexes or apartments or it's actually single-family homes, which we do need. I will agree with that. I just want to make sure that going forward, we all work together and dot every I and cross every T on this and don't just jump in to something that we're not going to be happy with down the road.
Any hands up on that? Okay. We're going to move on then to number 5, discuss and consider the minutes of the village board meeting on November 17th, 2025. Those meeting minutes are linked as a PDF in the agenda.
I would move approval of the minutes.
And I'll second.
There's a motion by Severson and a second by Murphy. Any discussion or comments on the meeting minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. So up first is presentation to the board, a concept presentation from the Monona Grove School District regarding a potential site plan amendment at Cottage Grove School. There are 2 documents that are linked in the agenda, and Dr. Frederick is here to kind of run us through these documents and give us an update.
Mr. Johnson is here from C.G. Smith, and Bill Miller is here from the district as the facility director. So thank you, Paula. So again, Tanya Frederick, Superintendent of the Monona Grove School District. Thank you for having us so that we can have a conversation tonight and introduce some concepts and get feedback for what more information that you may need. As the Monona Grove School District considers consolidation of our 4K2 schools, we currently have Taylor Prairie and Cottage Grove School, both schools which are operating about 50% capacity. I know there is a narrative that our schools are bursting. That would be great. It would be really great, but they're not. Our enrollment has continued to be flat for the last 5+ years. We continue to have schools that, as I entered the system last year and began to look at capacity, we do want schools to run 90% capacity, if not a little bit more, because that is where you get efficiencies. And as we were looking at moving to neighborhood schools, the conversation started to be, is it smarter for us to consolidate for the next 5 to 10 years, have Taylor Prairie still in our portfolio, and would love to see more students in the district that are school-aged so that we could have both schools running at capacity. It's just not where we're at right now. So as we look forward, the Cottage Grove School does have the capacity to fit all of our students that would be in Cottage Grove for K2. It would leave some room for growth. We are projected to decrease enrollment over the next 2 years and then flatten out. So there is space for kids to continue to come, but at this point, we have room. I think one of the things that we acknowledge is that obviously when schools were built, in the era that we built many of them, most kids walked or rode on the bus. So traffic is always a concern when you think about elementary schools that were built in 50s, 60s, 70s, different times like that. So as we're looking at that, we have been working with, we've had conversations with all of the different leaders from the village, and then also with architects to look at different ways that we could approach transportation in and out of that facility, so that we continue to be a good community partner, have safe in and out for buses and for families as we do that. So what we wanted to talk about tonight was what we have attached. There's 3 different concept plans. One is our current traffic pattern that you can see. That does allow for anywhere from 65 to 74 cars daily for pickup and drop off, and 8 buses. That current traffic pattern also has space for 34 cars to queue, which does result in some congestion on Main Street due to cars turning left and right into the parking lot. There are 2 other possible project profiles of how we could walk through that, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Johnson to walk us through those. Those would allow for us to have 134 cars and 10 buses, which would accommodate what we're projecting. Some of the key pieces that we were looking at, working with the architects, in addition to the contractors, was really looking for how do we have some safe and substantial on-site queuing space, and then also adding a fire lane for the buses. That school currently does not have a 365-degree access to it. So that is something that we would be looking at. Also utilizing a right turn only. Our buses do right turn only, and that really helps with the flow of traffic. But currently we've got left turns happening in both directions. In addition, wanting to connect the existing parking lot so that we would have an effective flow of cars that are in and out. Do want to just clarify, as we are looking at this wouldn't be a village expense. It would be a school district expense. And so what we would be looking for the village for is, we know process-wise need to get the plan approved, bring all those here, but not looking for funding, but looking for feedback on the approach and any other information that you would be looking for as we would think about submitting a plan. The board will be voting on consolidation on December 16th. And if people are interested in the information that we've been looking at in the 5 and 10 year past and forward projections, you can find those in the school district board docs starting October 28th, November 11th, and then obviously the next meeting is December 16th. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Johnson for him to walk through the 2 different concepts that would be presented as possible solutions for traffic.
There's no way to put it up on the screen. The images.
Yep, and then if you could stand at the microphone so the individuals on Zoom can hear.
That'll work. So the first image, I think this is option C. We start at the bottom. Yeah, just to show the existing plan. So this is what is the current state of the school. So you can see there's kind of traffic coming from both directions, north and south, and then turning right. Sorry for those that have my back to you. So this is kind of what we're trying to solve. You can see the 2 parking lots are currently separated, so you're in and out of the same parking lots. They're not connected, so the traffic flow is a little bit, chaotic, I'm sure, at the end of a school day as people are trying to go. So we've primarily looked at 2 options. We've looked at a couple different scenarios with stuff being on the south side of the building, potentially taking a drive, out to Plan Right. I think that's east. So we surveyed some other options, and we kind of landed on the 2 that we feel that are best options for the district. And those are the 2 that we kind of want to walk you through today of how those would work. So go ahead, go back up to C, the first page, please. So this is kind of the preferred plan. This does add that full loop around the school. So this is better access for EMS, fire services. We did review this with that group when we had kind of an initial rollout meeting. So that way, everything would enter, school bus-wise, would enter from the north into that drive that would then circulate the school and then come out on the south side. There would be a gate on top of that, so during the day when that wasn't in use for buses, that gate would be closed, that no one had access to go around outside of emergencies. The buses would all queue along the back side of the building, so relieving some of that congestion that's on the front side of the building and leaving that primarily just to parent and vehicle traffic flow. We would look to, have all of the traffic flow coming to the school come from south to north. So then you would have one entrance turning right into the parking lot. That kind of white line you see down the middle of the parking lots, we would remove the existing sidewalk that's there that separates the two parking lots. We would put in a wider kind of traffic lane for foot traffic down there. And at the bottom, we would open that up. So then you would have a W and M or whatever direction you're looking at it, traffic flow. So you'd come into the right, everyone would weave through in your W form, and then you would exit out of that site only turning right. So it would help reduce the amount of cross traffic coming in and out of the parking lots from that side. So that was kind of the initial thought. I think this is the preferred pattern that we're looking at, but ultimately, like it was noted, it's going to the school board for consideration of what their preference would be. But this was kind of the best fit option we thought that would work at the property. And then we did look at something a little bit more simplistic. It is the same idea from car traffic flow, still bringing everything from south to north, going through the parking lots in the same form, that W making that change to the center island. So you come in from the bottom on the right turn only, and then you go out of the parking lot turning to the north, right turn only. The difference here would be instead of having the bus loop going all the way around the building, we would have kind of a bus entry that comes in for queuing, a turnaround point on the north side of the building, and those buses would turn and go back out of the same entry that's shown. So cost-wise, we looked at this just because it's a little less with not having to circulate the school, but doesn't have the advantage of having the bus loop that goes all the way around the property. So those are really the kind of where we boiled down that we thought that those were the two best options for the site that we wanted to make you aware of that we were researching and looking at.
Obviously, the goal here is to get into the queue line as possible.
Correct.
And the way you have it presented here kind of accomplishes that
Yes.
at current capacity.
Yep.
And if you were to merge the two schools, it would also solve kind of that problem. If you were to add additional classrooms, if it were at max capacity at 90, 95%, would you have an increased number of queued cars on Main Street, or do you think that it would flow appropriately?
Yeah, we in these designs tried to account for that. We don't foresee that we get to the 540 kids that can fit in there, but it could fit.
Because I think that's what I've heard is kind of the biggest concern is we want to get as many cars off of N as possible during the morning and the afternoon pickup times.
Yeah, and as the architect firm looked at this, obviously they came out, they did studies, Jesse and his team does an amazing job. They get the cars in and out of there actually in 8 minutes once the kids come out. So it is a little janky over there for about 8 minutes in the morning and in the evening. Obviously, because there's traffic going in both directions and people are turning left and right, it's pretty congested for those 8 minutes. And nobody likes that. It's working, but it's not great. This would get cars off the road, eliminate the left turn. And then I think there's about a $300,000 price difference between the two different ones, but if we're gonna make the investment, it feels like making the investment that has the safety aspect of it, having that 360-degree access feels like the right move.
And then my other question, when you're moving to neighborhood, or you're consolidating into one, obviously, and perhaps we don't know the answer yet, the bus routes, would we have an increased number of buses, and would the fire lane accommodate all of the buses? We wouldn't have buses on the road or anything like
No,
that?
all the buses, many buses could be accommodated there. You know, we project that there will be 9 to 10. Currently, there's 8. And we hope that the bus routes will be shorter because we're not crisscrossing kids across town from the same families, which might increase ridership. If we could just get everyone to ride the bus, that'd be great. But, you know, personal preferences.
And then from a village board perspective, so this would, concept plans, site plans would actually have to come to plan commission. You'd, with your board meeting, you're gonna miss the December one, so you'd come back for the January plan commission, then ultimately back to the January board. And I'm sure plan commission would wanna look at, the site plan and, potential drainage issues or any kind of,
Including a traffic study.
Yes,
So we
yep.
have to do an updated traffic study.
Okay, I'll open the floor up to comments or questions from board members.
I just have one question. I like option C, and I like that it creates a fire line around the school. My one question is, and I don't exactly remember because it's been a while since my daughter's been there, but the playground, are we going to fence that off? Because especially with the little people, the 4K folks, like I would worry about the buses.
Yeah,
Going past that?
The playground, I mean, obviously, kids will need to be back in the building before the buses come to line up,
Okay,
morning and afternoon.
okay,
So it will shift kind of where kids are outside. It's not a huge amount of time, but that will need to be conscientious of that.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, because on the, let's see, the south side, the playground is along that side of the building. We are continuing to add new playground equipment as we think about having littles there, and we just need to think differently about those placements so that we can get them out
Inside.
of that ring.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question. So looking at right turn in only from the south, so residents that live on the north and are coming south on N, how do we keep them flowing that direction? Is there something that we need to do on N? Because human nature is they're going to come from the sun, they're going to want to turn left into the lot, right?
Yeah, so before school starts, we always send families some real detailed videos about how to do drop-off and pickup. And the first week is typically there is police presence helping us make sure that families are accessing that in the right way. And usually within a week, we've got things under control about people understanding how to approach and leave. So we'll just need to be really conscientious of
So
that.
you'll need some help from Cottage Grove Police Department as we try to direct traffic, as we're teaching?
Yeah, probably not any more than we have in the
Okay,
past.
okay.
I don't see that being an increased need. We're just gonna have to do some heavy promotion for families that drive.
Gotcha. Then the other question I had was, the current queuing is 35 cars. And so we're gonna be going up to 71 cars.
Yep.
So how do you envision keeping the cars moving is there gonna be like a passing lane because if a child went to get they forgot their code or whatever?
Yeah.
How do you keep the line going?
Oh, Peter, you should come and see it now. It's brilliant. So families are instructed that if they need to help their child, like, stop and help, that they park and then they walk in. Now, when families come up, they have their last name on the dashboard or their visor, and they're supposed to flip it down. And when it comes in the queue, they radio, and the kids come out on contact. So if somebody is radioed and they come out, then they're told, but the child has to go back in, they're told to go up way to the front, and then cars can go around them. So, yeah, it's some engineering.
Go ahead, Chris.
So post first couple weeks of school when parents are getting used to it, what's the enforcement mechanism going to be for the right turn only?
So usually there's staff out there. It's much like we have to do now when families don't follow the right protocol. It has a safety concern to it. And so we will, ask the family, to not do that. We will call the family, we will have a meeting, we will do lots of things if we are seeing that it's not safe, if people aren't following directions from a safety lens.
I'm just having a hard time envisioning someone who lives on School Road, coming down, turning right on to Cottage Grove Road, and then left onto Ollie, left onto Southern Grange, and then left onto N. I don't think they're gonna do that. And I think this doesn't seem to me to solve congestion. I think it just moves congestion around. I think it just moves congestion to Southern Grange, Wheelbridge, Ollie, and maybe Vista. So I think you're gonna get, now you got people mad because N is slow, but now with this change, I think you're gonna get people mad because they can't turn left from Wheelbridge onto N or Vista onto N. I don't have a solution, but it doesn't seem like it's actually solving traffic so much as rearranging it.
I would say yes, rearranging it, but in a much quicker way, because the turning left is a huge stall as far as people waiting, and that backs it up the most is the left turns.
Well, yeah, it's gonna be hard to turn left on a Wheelbridge though if there's constant traffic there. Or Vista.
To come out to join that traffic?
Yeah, to join the right
Yeah.
turning traffic.
Yeah,
on
right
there.
now, that's an issue already, and people are, believe it or not, are really good role models for their children. They take turns, they zipper in. And so, I'd encourage anybody to spend a little time over there, show up over there, you can kind of experience it. So.
Okay, thank you. I'm also, I guess, a little bit concerned about induced demand. If we make a big show of making it easier to drop off your kids, more people are gonna think they can drop off their kids easily and have more traffic there.
I don't,
mean-
when you think about our newer schools that have much easier queuing, we don't see a huge difference in the amount of families that drive compared to other places where it's harder. I think if people are gonna drive their kids, they're gonna drive their kids.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we could get more people walking, biking, or riding the bus. I don't know
Yeah.
how to do that. That's out of my area of knowledge, but
Yeah, I think when kids are that age, 4K2, the walking to school, obviously a parent still needs to do that. And so, families having the ability to be able to walk them and walk them back.
Yeah,
I think
I
it's
mean-
still just a lot of lifestyle
knowing that
things.
school administration is not my forte, it's kind of why I like having Taylor Perry, just because it's in the middle of a neighborhood. and
We
it's
wish
easier to
that was
walk.
the bigger school.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
If for some reason the right turn just isn't working with Cottage Grove, it is possible to then bring back both right and left at some point, right?
You
Like,
could,
this
with
isn't
less
like,
efficiency.
right. Do you envision any type of signage that's going to be needed, but from village side of things, most likely?
Yeah, or however that works. I
Okay.
feel like we usually pay for it.
Sounds good to me. All right, any other questions or comments on this? And this was just a preliminary kind of concept to the board so that we are prepared to help you move forward if and when your board makes this decision in the next couple of weeks.
If the board does not approve the consolidation, then it will go to the neighborhood schools and it will become two 4K2s. Cottage Grove School would run at about 38% capacity and Taylor Prairie would be about 52% capacity.
And those would be neighborhood schools, 4K through second grade, so that we would then have to revisit as a village the staffing of crossing guards at Taylor Prairie, which currently does not have them because of the littles having to have a parent walk. Okay.
I did just want to say that I think I prefer personally prefer E over C. I'm not wild about that, cutting through the kids' play area. But
I would also echo that. That was the one thing that jumped out at me, and I know you talked about controlling where before and after school the kids could go, and obviously if you do that, that's fine. But it just, originally when I first looked at it, having the bus traffic going around, and if the kids are gonna go out to that far playground, if they get dropped off early, there needs to be control that they don't go out there, right? I'm just assuming that's all been addressed. But again, that was my initial concern as well that Chris had.
Yeah, given the ages of the kids, supervision is high because they're so little. I would be a little more concerned if it was 3, 5 or older students, but given how little they are, they come right in.
Thank you for coming and presenting. All right, we'll move on to number 7, unfinished business, discuss and consider the pre-annexation agreement with Newman Developments. I think Steve is here, and I invite him to. come up and have a seat and join us for this conversation. And I'll ask, who should I ask first? Rick, do you want to go first?
Sure, I can just sort of give an overview. So we've prepared a draft annexation agreement for the board to consider, discuss tonight. The option for a closed session is obviously later on in the meeting. Essentially, this agreement, it mirrors a lot of aspects of the previous one that the board considered, except that there's no like immediate public improvements, but if that's something that the board wants to discuss, we can certainly have that conversation. But essentially, it doesn't obligate the board to annex or do zoning of any kind, but just sort of acknowledging that this proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan as drafted. The board would be accepting a lift station that the developer is going to build at its sole expense after the development, but there would be a future actual development agreement governing the any future development of this property, and they would have to do a traffic study as part of sort of that initial application for the plat. And if there are any improvements required that are a result of increased traffic, they would share in that proportionate cost. So again, we can sort of let, I guess, Newman talk about, or Steve talk about the proposal or answering any questions that board members have. Otherwise, we do have a closed session to discuss the agreement to see if there's any terms that the board wants to add, or I guess if there's just no conditions under which it would consider the annexation. We don't necessarily need a closed session for that, but I'll leave that to the discretion of the board.
Great. Thanks for the intro. My name's Steve DeClean. I'm with Newman Companies. Excited to be here. It's really fun to, be talking about a subdivision that's exactly in line with what I think is a really good comp plan that you guys have. Couple of things that came up last time we were here. We did reach out to the Banigans. A couple ideas as far as how to proceed with them, including like getting a guarantee of the value of their property and kind of standing behind that for the next 10 years. It's my belief their property will go up in value, and if it doesn't, I'm happy to stand behind that prediction. And then just the last gentleman had a comment about a garage back product. I don't really remember any kind of proposal with that. We don't currently do that at all. I think we were talking about it conceptually, but I don't think there was ever a call to action there. So other than that, really nothing's changed about it. I'm very excited about the development. I'm particularly excited about a 13-acre park being kind of the centerpiece of it, because I think parks are great. You already have a great sidewalk ordinance, so the connectivity and the livability of the community, I think, is going to be outstanding over the course of the next 6 to 8 years. So we've all had time to think about it, and I'm happy to answer any other questions that anyone's thought of over the last couple of weeks.
Just a quick one. When did you meet with the Banigans?
We talked to the Banigans after this meeting 2 weeks ago, and then we had email exchanges with them.
Okay. And what were the results? Like, do we have some sort of consensus?
Well, I mean, we haven't had a ton of time, but what we've offered to do is pay for an appraisal to kind of set the value of that property. And then, like I said, we would guarantee that. The other proposal was if they wanted to annex in, that would really be clean. We would pay to connect their house to water and sewer and pay the difference of the property taxes for 10 years. So, and those don't have to be exclusive. We would do them both. So, yeah. They haven't. It's in the Banigans' court to kind of think through and put the wheels in motion on an appraisal, because I think they would want to pick the appraiser, would be my guess.
Other comments or questions?
Yeah, so appreciate that you actually started the conversation. And when I looked at the plan last time, it's kind of a choppy annexation. And so to create an island is against state statutes, as you know. And so my understanding was there was going to be a little string of, and it wasn't shown on the plan. I think that's kind of working a loophole. I honestly think we need a clean annexation. I'm very much in favor of the park space. I think it's going to be great. I am a fiscal conservative, so I'm a little concerned, and Cameron, you and I today spoke about the taxes. A lot of people who spoke and provided input said this will provide really needed tax relief. That's not necessarily the truth, because the tax revenue certainly is going to be consumed by incremental costs, and that's something, Cameron, before I would be willing to proceed with this, we need full disclosure on what those financials look like, certainly at a straw dog level, so that we kind of have a good appreciation, because I think there's a fallacy that people think this is going to be a windfall on taxes. No, it certainly, hopefully would be positive, but it's more likely to be neutral, which is certainly fine. If we had a clean annexation without a town island, which obviously is a big concern, and then obviously the park space, there's a lot of good things about it, but I think there's some challenges here that I think haste makes waste. I want to make sure we do this right, and once we annex, it's very difficult to undo some of the things that are presented in the plan that was put forth.
So I just want to address, I would never think that I could make somebody annex in their property. If that's, I'm a little confused about that question.
Yeah, I guess the whole comment of how much conversation you've had with them, how that's been furthered, and how we expressed how that was an important thing to have a clean annexation. 120 acres, lay it out in a way that's thoughtful and is more designed as a plat instead of worked around an existing island that's there. The other thing is, obviously, we talked about it last time, is the town has different ordinances than we do, the animals, the who's gonna service some elements of it. There's just future conflicts that should be addressed now. And, taking care of it up front, proper planning, obviously prevents, as you know. So that's the really, in my mind, a very important part of, and I put that on you as a developer to negotiate that. You said, yeah, no problem, we can take care of it. Well, I'd like to see that taken care of, and I certainly think this could be a good thing for Cottage Grove.
Great, thank you.
Can I ask a Rick question? Just like a logistics question. So the pre-annexation agreement before us references Exhibit A, description of the property, and we don't have that. Is that correct?
Right. So the legal description would just be the area that would be potentially annexed. So we don't have that as of yet. I guess it could depend on if the Bannigan property is involved or not. So if the board were to take action tonight, it doesn't have to, right? We don't have an actual petition, but that would be an exhibit, I guess, that either you'd be waiting until that's completed and then you would want to give final approval, or you would just authorize the approval of the agreement subject to that exhibit being finalized in an acceptable form. So either option would work, or you could put off action until you're comfortable with a final product.
Okay, because obviously I think having the description of the property is pretty integral to this pre-annexation agreement, so, but that's just me.
Yep, and the thinking would be basically the concept proposal, that's the area that we would be describing, which is getting an actual legal description for it.
Other questions or comments from board members?
I agree. Excuse me, I too appreciate the amount of green space for park. I have concerns about how close the proposed development would be in terms of housing. I'm not real comfortable with the Bannigan property yet, because I feel like there's still a lot of unknowns, and I feel like we really need to be good neighbors with them and have more information. I don't feel like all of the pieces are really laid out long-term in terms of infrastructure that was brought up earlier in the discussion from residents of the village. So I feel like there's a lot of questions that need to be answered and come together, but I too am, it was brought up and I agree that the village is going to continue to grow, which is great, but we want to do it in a systemic, appropriate way, and not 5 years from now go, oh gosh, we didn't plan well enough for X, Y, and Z.
What were some of those, I missed that about the infrastructure questions. What are the unknown infrastructure questions?
What it's going to do to the roads, the school impact, what is this going to do to the taxpayers in terms of supporting the school, and oh my gosh.
Well, there's a comp plan that does consider all these things. So this isn't, again, this is consistent with the comp plan, and that's when all these things get vetted. I mean, it's interesting to be here behind the school who's dealing with decreased enrollment, and this is happening everywhere because people aren't having enough kids. I mean, that's what's going on out there. So I couldn't have come in back of a better person than the person who's dealing with flat to decreasing enrollment. So that sort of addresses the schools. The traffic study is typically handled with a traffic impact analysis, which we'd be happy to undertake. I think the impact from a residential development on a county highway is usually pretty de minimis, but the engineers, the traffic engineers will vet that. And then as far as what Pete said is absolutely true. Like municipalities do work hard for the tax money they get from single family, but that single family also supports industry by creating an employee base, and it supports commercial that kind of does some of the heavy lifting. So it's all in the balance of a community that, again, is all consistent. I'm not asking for a comp plan amendment. I mean, that's what the comp plan does, is weaves these things together and talks about the right ratios of things.
Right, and the ratios, like when we're talking about school enrollment in the future, I mean, that's kind of a guesstimate too. I mean, we don't know that for fact. So
I think the school district, when I had talked to Dr. Frederick about this development, estimated the development fully built out would bring about 38 kids into the school district. They have enrollment calculations, and they look at our population projections every year, and I know Matt and team meet and update, and they update all that, which is why they know that enrollment is declining for 2 years and then is flat, and they're going through obviously everything that we just heard about. I do want to emphasize too that this, and I know we've gotten a lot of feedback from residents today, and we heard from quite a few of them too, that we are very early on in this process. And I know that you came to Plan Commission, you came to the village board, you're doing a pre-annexation, and none of that is required by you. But we do appreciate you giving us obviously a lot of notice that you're interested in this and you're working towards coming up with a much better site plan for a Plan Commission to actually look at the plat and give all the feedback that we would be giving at a much higher level than we have right now. And I don't know if it's helpful, there's a lot of people here and people watching, if we bring up one of the documents in the agenda that has the kind of the timeline of how the process is going to continue working, and where there's opportunities for the public not only to give input at every single meeting, just like everyone did tonight, but when there's going to be a neighborhood meeting and when we can have, more conversation too, back and forth conversation. That might be helpful. I know if someone wants to bring up that PDF that has kind of all the next steps that have to happen too, and obviously there's stop points to it. I'm guessing that Plan Commission is going to demand a traffic impact analysis, right? And if it comes to the point where our engineers say that this is not feasible and our roads cannot handle it, which we have yet to see happen, there's going to be stopping points to where development then we know that can't happen. But I think that there's a big team here too that is willing to work and collaborate and make sure that a lot of these concerns are addressed at some point. I hate to put you on the spot, Aaron, but do you think you could just run through the timeline for everyone?
Sure. So in the memo, we're at the red line there, the pre-annexation agreement coming up for consideration. The annexation that would be submitted by the property owners to the village and to the state. The state has 30 days to review the annexation and provide a letter of guidance to the village. The village can't take any action until we have that letter. As far as the planning and zoning, they'd be required to hold a neighborhood meeting before they submit a preliminary plat. So that would be residents within, or property owners within 400 feet, both town and village. And it's kind of up to the developer how they want to do that. Sometimes it's an open house, sometimes it's a presentation, sometimes it's in person, sometimes it's virtual. It's kind of whatever they think is going to work best for them. For the preliminary plat, once that's submitted, that requires a public hearing at the plan commissions. That's another opportunity for the public to come forward. Typically, the rezoning happens at the same time. That also has a public hearing, so it'd be kind of a combined effort. If they do happen separately, then it would be 2 hearings. Then it goes to the village board for those actions. Then there's a final plat. Typically, it's when the final plat is substantially similar to the preliminary plat, then it's the village is required to approve it, but we are looking at more details in terms of engineering and things like that. And then following those approvals, there would be a developer agreement that the developer and village would work out. It's kind of outlining various responsibilities for improvements and things of that nature.
Aaron, if I may, do you file would you file the final plat all on the entire subdivision or in phases?
It could be either.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chris.
I guess I have kind of a process question. So this is, we're at the pre-annexation stage right now. Is there anything precluding us from issues that Pete brought up or Renee, Paula brought up? Because the pre-annexation is not a guarantee that we're going to annex, right?
Right. So basically, this addresses a few items. So number one being that they're going to construct a lift station just because that's a specialty sort of consideration for this development. They're going to construct it at their sole expense and dedicate to the village, which the village would accept. A few acknowledgements that their proposal is at least consistent with the comprehensive plan, but you could still decide at the annexation petition that ultimately it's not in the public interest. I guess one thing though is the village has the most discretion for approval process at the annexation stage, or the, adopting an annexation ordinance, or the zoning stage. Those are sort of the 2 most discretionary places. Once we get to the preliminary plat, a lot of it is governed by your subdivision ordinance. So that would be, that's going to address setbacks, sort of lot layouts, things like that, lot sizes, public improvements that we'll have a better sense of as we get further along in the process. But you still have quite a bit of discretion at that point because the subdivision ordinance and the statutes are pretty broad. But ultimately, at that point in time, we're kind of applying ordinance to the facts on the ground, I guess. So you could approve this. I guess we don't want to make it a long no, though. So if we're going to approve a pre-annexation agreement, we don't want to string somebody along, I guess, just to have it be denied. So we want to make sure that we're addressing all the concerns that the board might have at this stage of the process, knowing that more of the details, I guess, of the proposal will be worked out as we get further along and they have more detailed plans that are preliminary plats that they're submitting.
Okay, so it's not really like we are going to do an amended pre-annexation agreement to address those things. That would be more appropriately addressed in the annexation agreement.
It would be, bigger picture items would be more appropriate for now. Typically, the development agreement is just addressing public improvements for something like this because that's usually what is required for making the development happen within the village, is making sure there are roads, sewer, water, stormwater, things like that. So that's typically what the development agreement would address after they've gone through all the approvals.
Okay, I'm just trying to find a middle ground here. Is there any way to do like a 2-stage annexation and rezoning? Like, would we be able to, would you be willing to? I don't want to give you any more administrative costs or anything like that, but to not annex the portion that's got the Bannigan so that you guys can work through any compromise there while still annexing the rest of it and getting to start working on that? Can we do things like that?
Yes, and then I guess if anything comes up with the Bannigan property, could address that at a future point, or I guess, one thought would be you could do an annexation and then split it up where you don't do the zoning right away and do the zoning later on in the process after you've got more information. But again, we want to have sort of concrete information about what you would want to see, and what would make the board comfortable moving forward with the project.
Because I don't want to take a vote right now and have it deadlock again. So I think it might be worth it to go into closed session to talk about what, if you're willing to talk about what changes we might be able to make,
Of course, yeah.
to try to get the board to a yes. Does anybody else think we should do that?
I guess just to be clear, the developer wouldn't be in the closed session.
Okay,
Yep.
well, we could, I
Yep.
mean, we could talk about amongst ourselves what might get a majority approval.
Yeah, absolutely.
Heidi?
I have some other questions to ask before we get to that point, though, about like the requirements for traffic impact analysis. Maybe Josh and Kyla can weigh in on that. We heard a lot of concerns, maybe saw some of them, about residents in the area worried about increased traffic. And I can understand like the fear of the unknown and not knowing what to expect. And I know that we can take a number of traffic calming measures. Some might show up in a traffic impact analysis, and some we may have to take on our own as like we implement Safe Streets for All type of programs. So I think I'm expecting you to say that some things will be covered in traffic impact analysis and some other things can be engineering requirements that we have the developer put in if we want to consider like those hump speed bumps or maybe even add those to existing roads. But those might be two separate things, and whether we implement some, they may not be included in the traffic analysis, but we can still look at it as a whole. So I just want to learn a little bit more about the TIA, so then you know, the members that contacted us and some that are here today would know more about what that means.
Good question. I think you're right on both fronts. They're kind of two separate things a little bit of one, traffic. TIA is going to show where the traffic is generated in the development and where it is going. And then traffic calming is kind of a side thing. It's how obviously things are designed, how they're set up, and whether they're in that subdivision or outside of that subdivision may be a different, conversation with just some village stuff that goes on. Generally, though, as you get a little more traffic, you actually calm speeds a little bit too. Some of these roads just don't have a lot of traffic, so people go pretty fast on them. I agree with the developer. Residential doesn't add a ton of trips. It's not like commercial or business or something else. These roads, a 2-lane road that's in a rural area or in an urban area like this, neighborhoods can handle 6,000 to 8,000 vehicles, no problem. The 2-lane road right outside as we head north here can handle, with no access on it, up to 16,000 vehicles a day. It just depends on the nature and the speed and everything else. These roads are, I think when we're setting up traffic counts, some of these roads are seeing 300 to 500 to 800 vehicles a day. So they have plenty of capacity to take more traffic. The other thing with this one, if you think about it, when we were looking at the lift station down there on the south end, and it was the one way out only on Taylor, and they did a TIA for that. Same acreage. I think it's about 340s, right? This is about 340s. That was 340s. About the same densities probably. They looked at that traffic signal down there, and there was just a minor tweak. We never got to it. They didn't get all the way to their approvals, but we started to see glimpses of what their TIA was going to be. They were almost done with it, and there was just minor traffic things that had to be done at that Taylor intersection, and that was one connection. Here they'll have 3 or 4 different connections to get out of this. The main one is Meyer even heading south to Cottage Grove Road is kind of a major thing, but then they even on and have several connections out. So that will help overall flow. The traffic calming and that's a different effect. It's in geometrics. It's things that could be added within the development and things that you could probably add outside of the development on existing streets. That's more of maybe a village-wide conversation too, outside of this. Does that answer your question, Heidi?
Oh, sure, if you want to ask a follow-up.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, we're on that, just super quick.
Yeah.
You mentioned Meyer Road. What would happen if the town chose to gate that road closed?
And you wouldn't have the connection, you're saying?
Right. What would that do to?
You still would have 3 or so connections the other way. So you can't get to Parkview, but you'd have North Lawn, you'd have School Road, you'd have the Matt Pass that could go north, either out Limestone or on Gaston. So, I mean, you have several connections to that development that would help, definitely would help. Yep.
And so we've been talking about Safe Streets for All. I know that grant has been like a long time in process because of a lot of federal stuff, since that's where the grant came from. Or maybe is still coming.
Correct.
Hopefully.
Still haven't heard anything. Yep.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. But that is also something that we could look at independently, we talked a lot about different traffic calming things. I know there was a lot of talk about stop signs, which may not necessarily actually calm traffic, but I know that is, something that concerns these residents. And then in like the neighborhood I live in, there's like bump outs built in to try and slow traffic down. So that's something that as part of the development we could talk about in further approvals, like areas where kids cross like on bike paths and things to try and get like that narrow, force the cars to slow down sort of.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, you're right on spot.
Yeah, I consider myself an order taker. People like her just push me around and I just do it. That's kind of the way that works.
All right, thank you. Another question I had was about buffering then along next to the town border. So those lots look like they're a little bit deeper. I don't know if it's because we have like buffering between different land uses, but I'm not sure, Aaron, maybe you can help me out with like what buffering would look like between jurisdictions.
So the buffering that's required by ordinance is usually when it's two different land uses, commercial to residential or industrial to residential. There wouldn't be a requirement for that, but it's something we can ask for in the plat if we want deeper lots or some sort of green space buffer.
Yeah, I thought that was a good suggestion.
Yes, and then the same would go then with street connections, those that would stub out to the east. I live in a neighborhood that the town hasn't granted the connection for roadways, and I would assume that this would be the same situation. We'd have it there in case there was ever the desire to connect it from both parties, but because it's a lot harder to get land to connect later, but we're not seeking any intention to connect to that town road currently. Is that? I don't know who wants to answer that, but it's not in the intention to desire a connection or require the developer to connect into a town road currently.
Are you talking about, is that the north-south?
East School Road, like stubs out way out on the eastern border.
So, right, because that road there's not an actual connection for it to make right now. It's just a future, if property were to develop to the east, then theoretically the goal would be to try to connect it to, I think that's Kennedy at some point, but that's only if those properties were to annex, and I guess frankly they're residential lots that kind of buffer Kennedy, so that connection might not be made for a very long time, just because residential subdivisions in towns don't tend to annex unless there's like a failing septic system and they want to connect to utilities. So you make that sort of dead end for future planning purposes, but for something like this, in my experience, I'm not a planner, so maybe my opinion doesn't mean anything. But you do it just for future planning purposes, but I think the likelihood of that connection actually happening, at least the school road, it's probably fairly limited possibility unless we're talking 50, 60 years from now. And that's if all of those sort of residential homes annex in.
And realize this is pretty preliminary. So when we at first kind of met, we were like, just make sure you plan for the future, right? Sort of thing. I would say out of all of those connections, that school road one maybe doesn't make sense to extend that way, but you probably want something to the north, something further to the south that goes to the east, where you see these open parcels, right? Or these big open tracts of land that you don't someday then can't make a connection, to, and you have to have another dead end off of a town road to get into something, and it really makes it hard in the future. So, I mean, I don't think all those are 100% figured out.
No,
This is concept.
I mean,
right?
we were a little intentional.
Yeah.
We thought we were trying to capture anything that had development potential.
Yep.
Honestly, it's better for us to not connect them. I'd rather have a cul-de-sac than a stud
Right,
street.
yeah.
So like, you're not breaking my heart if something doesn't need to get connected.
Right.
So that's sort of the direction of the conversation. Is I'm just trying to preserve the ability to develop anything that might in the future be developed.
Sure, I appreciate that, and I appreciate the conversation that we don't want to limit ourselves in the future and wish that we would have had something that we didn't. But I am, since it's not a back and forth when community members come up here, I do try and take notes and get feedback on their behalf, so then we can have it on the video and such. So I do appreciate that. Another thing, you know, since there was, sounds like maybe a question for Cameron, or if Matt wants to weigh in, like we talk about our growth and levy limits and providing services in the future, and you know, budgets, especially in other communities that may not have, you know, any growth, are increasingly strained to provide current services. Like, I don't know if there's anything that either of you want to weigh in on, you know, the higher burden on existing taxpayers, like the risk of not growing and having to try to maintain our current services and, you know, our current school district. And I don't know if there's something you want to weigh in on that.
Yeah, I mean, the risk of not growing is we'll end up needing to perpetually be in a referendum state just to operate. That's kind of the general summary.
And maybe I'll cover the utilities a little bit. I think a big barrier is always the giant fixed costs. So like a new well, a regional lift station, more schools. And so kind of when we're talking about like tax impact, we have to kind of put it into buckets. Obviously, as we add more residents, there's going to be more fire, EMS, and police needs, and that's a pretty one-to-one ratio with increase in population. But as far as you know, the capacity in the new police station, the planning and the impact fees for the Well 5 and the Ridge Lift Station, that's in progress right now. We're setting ourselves up to make sure that that stuff is being paid for by development rather than this adding to the tax roll. So I just want to be that's very intentional effort that the parcels and areas of land that are driving, especially on the utility side, are the ones that are actually paying for the eventual infrastructure that's required. So water works a little bit differently than sewer, as Josh described to me a little bit. So we're able to, for a well, we're able to look at the entire system and what our capacity needs. So not only this neighborhood, but other neighborhoods would also contribute to a potential new well, which is down the road. But for a Ridge Lift Station specifically, this would be part of the region that would be served or could be served by that station eventually. Why you wouldn't necessarily be required to build it overnight is that lift station would serve a ton of capacity that we don't need currently. So this could, by a development like this that takes 6 to 8 years, it could allow that capacity to grow. We wouldn't really be doing any additional maintenance and long-term planning on this existing lift station, and it would eventually be incorporated into the more regional element after we've collected the fees from each of these lots and other lots that would be developed in the service area. So these are kind of all things that have been kind of strategically laid out as an ability to pay for these assets when or if they're needed.
And all the infrastructure that would be built in this development likely won't need any kind of notable maintenance on the roads for 15, 20 years. So you're having new infrastructure, the park, things like that. From the tax base perspective, and again, once it's fully built out, if all stayed the same with our tax levy, which it won't, we can't speak to what future boards are going to do, and there'll be, you know, incremental adjustments to that. But if we increase the tax levy or increase the tax base with this development once fully built out, and the current tax levy remain the same, that would be about a 11 to 12% decrease in village taxes, something around there. Having said that, by the time it's built out, it'll probably be valued much higher, and then, but also the levy will be subsequently higher as well.
Can you go back to the taxes will be 12% less? I didn't follow that. Can you elaborate?
Adding $150 million to our current tax base while leaving our tax levy budget the same would lower taxes.
Okay, but
significantly.
adding 250 homes, approximately 650 people, it's a 7% increase in the population. The tax impact will be about $600,000, the village portion, the 30%. And that's got to cover police, fire, EMS, streets, public works, park and rec, and any incremental administration. So it's not, that's what I was saying before. Yeah, there's definitely revenue, but there's a lot of cost to support a 7% increase in our population.
And I'm not a city administrator, but correct me if I'm wrong that, well, first of all, silly question, is this considered high density or single family when we're talking about this development in particular?
Of the two, I would call it single family.
Okay. So it's my understanding, and I could be wrong, that for existing taxpayers, that our taxes aren't going to go down. Yes, we would benefit as a community from increase in tax base, but as, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Peter, but kind of leaping off of your thought is tax base is going to increase, but for those existing, it's not going to go down. If I'm
That's
correct.
not correct.
So I think where you'd see decreases are the big fixed costs. So as this, like especially in the school district, adding a neighborhood of 250 new homes, that in itself doesn't increase the ability for the school district to increase taxes, but it gives a bigger base to distribute those taxes by. For the local taxes, we kind of debt service on the existing fixed facility, so the debt that's going to be taken out for the police station. The bigger area to spread that debt across will obviously lower that portion of the levy. Obviously, as we work through this process, the direct possible effects on public works, police, EMS, and fire, I think will be evaluated. But in general, those fixed costs are going to be what you see that decrease over a bigger base.
So, again, it might be a silly question. This is kind of a side of the development we're talking about now. So, I've lived in Cottage Grove now for almost 6 years, and growth and development of the community has continued, but my taxes have not gone down. They've gone up substantially.
Yeah, so one thing I will add to that, so TID 5, so I kind of put development into two buckets, within a TID district and outside of a TID district. A vast majority, almost 95% of the growth in the village has happened in TID districts in the last 5 years. So you'll see this in the tax insert that will be mailed out, and it was presented in the development update. The village is recognizing, or should recognize, on it for the average assessed value of $315,000, about $1,300 in tax savings in 2026. So spread that across the last 10 years, and you would have recognized each year some incremental value for the increase in development. And so what this development is this is within, where this development is outside of a TID district. And so I think when I'm looking at this from a tax and service perspective, I'm thinking about, does this mean X number of more squads, X number of, another ambulance and things like that, is how I try to determine a rough estimate of what the cost would be.
But I think too, this is almost a little philosophical. Like, I'm not, responsible for the structure of municipal finance, right? Like, it's not incumbent on me to balance the municipal finances with the way taxes are charged on something, right? Like, a community takes a balance of some industry, some commercial, and some housing. It pays planners hundreds of thousands of dollars to come up with a plan of how they're gonna do that. And like, that's where that heavy lifting is done. This conversation is true. It's also, I don't know how, and I think it's important for a village to think about, but I think they should think about that at the comprehensive plan, not when a developer comes in willing to spend $18 million on infrastructure with no you know, all on with my money, right? To do exactly what the comp plan is saying to do. So I don't know that it's fair to place on me the unfair cost to benefit ratio of the taxes on a house, right? Like,
Yeah, I think this conversation is more about, this will increase our tax base, absolutely 100%. My point is, there's going to be incremental cost to the village, so it's not a windfall, and everybody, some of the feedback we got was, oh, this is badly needed tax base. I'm not disagreeing with
That's
that, but
fair.
it's not a windfall, right? And I think, Cam, what you're talking about is TID districts where the cost of the village to provide the services is a lot less relative to the valuation and the impact on taxes. So I think when you talk about commercial development, the amount of, what that brings to the tax base is far different than a residential neighborhood as it relates to the services. That was my only point. But again, I agree with you 100% in terms of what you're saying.
yeah. And so to be clear, for anyone listening, this is not in a TID district. Like, I'm paying all this with developer money. That's how this thing's getting funded. I don't want any confusion there.
So just some context on the taxes. So after being fully built, 150 million would generate about 3.3 million in perpetuity in taxes. So a third of that would go to the village, and we can crunch the numbers, but I'm sure our services would not, for those homes, would not cost the village $1 million. Our entire levy is about $6.5 million.
I would also say, you know, in Cameron, you could sort of reasonableness check this for me, but there's probably $10,000 to $12,000 worth of impact fees and land dedication and everything required when a house gets built. Or
Oh, yeah, per house.
you know,
So we're finalizing that. So one of the,
$2.5 to $3 million kind of coming in during the course of construction to help pay for some of that capital stuff as well.
right. I mean, I just, to put this into perspective, a new well is like $5-6 million. And so we build the impact fees to help make sure that we're recovering those fixed costs on that. Not quite that much. You know, we actually remain kind of in our analysis on the water and sewer side, kind of on the higher side in Dane County by quite a bit for water and sewer. So we do a good job of making sure we're recapturing those fixed costs.
Can I just add, I wholeheartedly agree with you, right? The impacts to our tax base and such is not on you. So I'm leaving you off the hook for that. But I will say, you know, you said, you know, we're kind of talking philosophical, right? And it's hard as an elected official to wrap your mind around what are the true costs, right? And so I've done a ton of research, and one of the things that I worked through and found was a study by the Wisconsin Policy Forum, Public Policy Forum. The name of the study is Fiscal Facts. It just came out on September 3rd, I think, of 2025. And so what that does is that looked at kind of statewide. And so I have to wrap my mind around a context. So that report shows that across all cities and villages in the state, average operating spending reached $1,192 per capita, okay, so per person. And then net basic spending was $745 per capita. So net basic spending is going to be Parks and Rec, Public Works, right, police, fire, EMS. So if we look at a family of 4 that moves in a single family residence, we're looking at a tax impact of $7,748, just using those 2 items, right? From our cities, villages perspective. So there is a number that we can benchmark, right? And so when somebody asks the question, you know, if the tax base is increased, why are my taxes not going down? I think that number helps point us to the reality. You know, the other piece of it is we can look to our budget. We can look to the increase in EMS budget over the last 10 years, the increase to police. You know, we can point to some of those things pretty clearly as to why the taxes haven't gone down for residences. So I think it's a little bit of a myth that adding residential homes helps lower taxes for other homes.
But Paul, I know the study you're talking about, and I
Yes.
think the study's flawed in that it's very linear. You need houses if the baker is gonna have a bakery, right? In a building that's gonna pay taxes, right?
Understood.
The baker doesn't live there, so he's not in the per capita. You need houses so that the guy who owns the manufacturing company can have employees. So you
Yes.
can have teachers, so like, it's part of a picture, and yeah, people are what costs money. Matt deals with people, right?
Right.
But you need all of it.
Right.
And if you compare multifamily to single family when it comes to residential, most studies will tell you the single family is the better bang for the buck for a community. Okay, so like, and again, I go back to like, there's a comp plan. This thing is right in your comp plan.
You're right.
So
Well,
it's like, I hate to keep beating that drum,
No,
but like,
no.
all these questions about taxes and how things get
Absolutely.
paid for, it's not that simple.
And I do kind of want to take a step, like we are here to talk about the pre-annexation
yeah.
agreement
Okay.
too.
Yeah,
You know,
yes.
that on the agenda. And so I know we're getting into like a philosophical approach, but I do want to make sure that we do kind of stay on track a
Thank you.
little bit too.
Chris, I did want to just mention, if you can figure out a way to do an annexation in pieces, no skin off my back at all. So I did want to make sure I got back to that.
Yes.
I do agree that this is in the comprehensive plan, and we have well thought out our comprehensive plan and have a balance so we can support all of our industry and have an excellent place to live with wonderful parks and really create a community that includes everyone and has a place for everyone. So I think that this neighborhood fits within, I agree that this fits within. But we had a lot of comments come in, and I really wanted to take this opportunity in open session on the record to have this discussion with the colleagues. So I really appreciate your patience in that, because I suspect that there were a lot of unanswered questions for some people, and maybe didn't know how much time and thought went into all of these things to create the big picture for our community. So I really do appreciate you entertaining that for a little bit.
If you can't tell, I love this stuff, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I think obviously fits within our long-term utility planning and our comprehensive plan. And there are many other steps, as we kind of already went through, of what needs to happen and when public can give additional input and we can suggest changes. So I personally don't have a problem with the pre-annexation agreement tonight. And then moving forward, we'll have, a lot of other types of input.
So if I may, since I sat kind of quietly, I wanted to make sure everybody else got a chance to speak. Just a couple of quick things. First, to Chris's question about closed session, I have no desire to go into closed session. I think if we're going to hash some things out, we do it in the transparency of the public. But that's just my viewpoint. I know that the residents and others on the board have mentioned the comp plan, and I'd just like to ask a question. Who was on the board when the last comp plan was approved? Could you raise your hands?
I think we had an amendment, but the entire comp plan was reviewed before I was on the board.
Okay, the comp plan amendment for 2020, the answer is you. You were the only one on the
Well,
board
that was the
approved that
amendment,
amendment.
yes.
So the vision of the comp plan is not necessarily coherent with the vision of some of the folks that are on this board now. Let's just be honest about that. Now, I'm one of those. 1,793 people voted for me, right? So I carry some weight behind me. It's not just me saying I don't care for this vision. But I want to address a number of things. And like I said, I've done a lot of research and a lot of studying on this. And, I mentioned at the last meeting, I was very forthright with you that I didn't support this, and I continue in that regard. Couple of things that I want to address, because this has come up in emails to us. I've seen this on social media. I've kind of heard this tonight. The first comment, and it really, really just makes my heart hurt, is when people say we shouldn't care about what the neighbors in the town have to say, or their voices matter more than ours, or any of those things. That hurts me, because up until probably 20 years ago, the village and town residents saw themselves as one cohesive unit. Now, maybe not the governing bodies, but the people did. And so, I think about the town of Cottage Grove, and we share 3 districts with them. We share a fire district, we share an EMS district, and we share a school district. We also share a school district with Monona. And why I mention that is I have never heard one person say, why should we care about the kids from the town of Cottage Grove or the kids from Monona when we're talking about school board issues? And if that's the case, why shouldn't we hold that to the same about our town of Cottage Grove neighbors? So that's my first thing that I have a challenge with. Secondly, we haven't talked with the town board about the stormwater that's proposed in the concept plan. And I think that is a key element. So I think perhaps we even put it on next week's joint agenda to start that conversation. So there's that. I asked the question about what happens if the town gated, Meyer Road. It's not outside the realm of the possibility. I mean, in Madison, there's streets by the high school that are gated. So I mean, it's not outside that. Second item that is important to me, maybe not everybody, but it's important to me from a lens of sustainability. Over the last 14 years, we've annexed over nearly 500 acres from the town of Cottage Grove, most of which was farmland. Why is this important? I mean, there's obvious reasons like the food system that is a big reason, but here in Dane County, we have some of the best soil for farming in the United States with class 1 and class 2 soil. Farmland, once you pave over farmland, you never get it back. And farmland protects water. I have notes. Yes, I'm reading from my notes because I have a lot to say and I don't want to screw anything up. But I think there's a lot of sustainability. And when people ask questions about the environment, there's a lot that happens the more that we urbanize. We talked about the tax base, so I won't go back to that, but I will just add on the police and EMS impacts is something that we can point to because it's already happening. So we're building a $16 million police station. At LEC last week, we had the strategic plan, the draft of the strategic plan, which calls for 2 to 3 sworn officers beginning in 2026 and carrying every year after that. And then additional clerical support, additional training funds. So the vision is out there, and we know that these costs are coming. I mean, Chief requested, I think, 2 officers this year, which we said no to, right? So, we know that's happening. We haven't talked at all about the fire department, and obviously that is something that I am incredibly just passionate about. One of the challenging things for me is we're about to go into an RFP and studies to study fire and EMS. I really think we should complete that first, but regardless, if not, let's point back to the 2022 PPA study. So that study projected that in the year 2035, the village's population would be 8,465. Right now, we're over 9,400. Now, population in terms of fire protection is not a trigger itself, right? So it's more so response time. And the PPA study talked about that. So currently, if you look at the 2024 annual report from the fire department, the response time, and this is the average, there's an asterisk, for a confirmed fire is 9 minutes and 21 seconds. That's currently. And again, stick with me, this is gonna take a minute, but I'm gonna loop it all back around. When we get areas of north of BB, that time extends. For instance, and I know this because I have Life 360 on my phone, and so I can watch where my husband's going to and from. It takes him, when the fire pager goes off, it takes him 4 to 6 minutes to get from our house on Crawford Drive to the fire station. It takes him about a minute or so to get his gear on. It takes 4 people minimum to roll the truck out. According to Google Maps, if you look at the distance between the fire station and the end of Molly Lane, and I say the end because that would butt up to the subdivision, that's an additional 7 minutes. So conservatively, it's gonna take 11 minutes to get there. I actually drove it today, just out of curiosity, and it took me from my house to the fire department to Molly Lane, 17 minutes. That was at 4:00 p.m. Yes, it was a little slick. Yes, I was not going lights and siren, but that's, my point is, we already have a gap. The PPA document talked about a response time based off NFPA code 1720, which is the standard on organization and deployment of fire suppression operations, EMS, and special operations to the public by volunteer fire departments. That's a standard. It's a best practice. It's not a code. It's not a law. It's a standard. And the standard is that you have people on scene, firefighters on scene within 10 minutes to a structure fire 80% of the time, 10 personnel for a structure fire, 4 firefighters within 10 minutes to other emergent resources. So we're already pushing the envelope, right? The follow-up, and I don't know how many of the board has seen this, but PPA did a follow-up report after the initial report, and that's where some of these numbers are coming from. But they also talk that a fire station should be located within a 5-minute response time to homes. We're way out of whack with that, right? So we're talking about building a new fire station, probably in the 2030, I think was our financial management plan, which if we put it in the middle of our village, right, that'll get us to that 5 response time. But they also recommend moving to a municipal department, the old PPA study does, and you're talking about $1 million. So, I mean, all of these things have to be considered, and they have to be considered by us, not by the developer. It's not his job, it's our job. And we need to dig into these things and understand these, because we continue to spend and spend and spend, and we're in $50 million in debt, and we're saying, oh, but you know, we just need more tax base, and your taxes are gonna go down. That hasn't happened. I've lived here for 20 years. The only time I think our taxes went down is the last time I was on the board and we cut the levy by 15%. So I just want to and finish with these 2 thoughts. If all we're concerned about tax base and bringing in tax base, and we're not talking about the quality of life for our existing residents and what this impact on them is, I think we're missing the boat. You know, the timing of this was unfortunate because right before Thanksgiving, we had a whole neighborhood, multiple emails that came to us. I got phone calls that people up in the Pheasant Run area and Morning Dove and Damascus had brown water the day before Thanksgiving. And one person tell me that they ran their water for hours upon hours and it's still brown. So not just that, but what other amenities do we have to show for our development? Do we have a leaf truck for curbside pickup? Do we have a community center? Do we have a pool? Do we have fine arts? Do we have music? We have nothing to show for this. So I'm going to say this really clear. I'm not saying never grow. I'm not. We have land in our village that is already dedicated to residential. Let's build there. But I am saying that I think we need to grow responsibly in our footprint and protect our neighbors and our farmland, protect our taxpayers, and most importantly, we need to be doing the things that improve the quality of life for the residents that are already here.
All right. So the pre-annexation, yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I guess I'm just a bit confused by that because a new fire station, would love to have it. There's no way we can afford a fire station unless we continue to grow. Exactly. We have to grow. And all these arguments you guys have been making, I think are a very compelling argument for denser housing because it's a better return on investment for taxes. We're never going to be able to pay for a municipal department, which would be great. But we have to keep growing. I mean, this concept plan, it's single family only, owner occupied. Smaller lots, which is good for seniors. It's got a big green open space. There's multiple ways out of the neighborhood. It's everything I've heard you say that you're looking for in a development, and you're opposed to this. It's the most basic anodyne development we could ask for, and it's being opposed. I don't really understand that. The bottom line is, if you can't support this single family, owner occupied, smaller lot with a park, I don't know if there's any development that you can approve. And I think that's a really dangerous direction for the village because it's going to mean we're going to have to either stop paying for services, we're going to have to cut services, we're going to have to decide which infrastructure we are going to continue to pay for and which we're going to have to let decay and rot because we can't pay for it, or we're going to have to continue to go to referendum to continually increase our taxes because we're going to have to pay for those roads.
Chris, if I may too, can we just add on to the fact there's a massive housing shortage in the state of Wisconsin and in Madison in general, and that's just another 250 people who can't have a house.
Appreciate
And
that. Can we have debate among the board on this item? Chris, I totally hear what you're saying. I totally get it. And I just said, I am not opposed to growth. We have land within our village already. We have it in our 2030 financial management plan to build a village-only station. We're already planning for that, regardless if we approve that development or not. It's in our plan. Like, you know, and yes, I do think we need single-family small lots. I absolutely do. But I also don't think that we need to continue our sprawl outward and continue to gobble up farmland.
I absolutely agree with that, and I absolutely think we need to do infill, but we can't just say we want to do infill and expect things to come. We need to actually change things in our zoning, like we need to get rid of parking minimums. We need to go to smaller lot sizes, smaller lot coverage. We need to do more mixed use. And if you want to bring those zoning changes next week, next month, I'll be second on them.
Okay, I'll put
but-
it on. I'll
So the
put some
discussing to
recommendations
consider
on.
tonight is the pre-annexation agreement. I'm going to come back to that again. And so I think we are drifting pretty far off at this point, and we do need to come back and start making a little headway on this agenda. Please.
So I just want to go back to, there isn't a description, a legal description of the property. And we did talk last time, and I'm going to go back to, you know, as a developer, I'd like to see a package that shows no town island, which is against state statutes. And I don't want a little strip of land connecting it like we've got in a couple other parts of the village. So, I mean, the way that it's set up right now, the annexation, the pre-annexation agreement has a town island, correct? Rick?
No, that would be illegal.
Not a legal town island.
No.
So the way that a town island is described is it's completely surrounded by the annexing municipality. So this, actually that whole stormwater lot, I believe would be remain in the town. So that's actually a pretty substantial connection and wouldn't be like a legal town island.
We got a legal opinion on that too. There's no question that this would be.
That stormwater is not going to, that stormwater area to the south is not part of the annexation. See, it's not really clear in the documents that I received. So it looks to me like a town island.
Correct.
And I still go back to on Meyer Road where that property is, it's just a real choppy plat. And I mean, I think as a developer, I would certainly be more in support of it if we had a clean plat that we're annexing that entire 40.
And I can't do that because I don't.
You can negotiate with landowners, right? And I'm just saying, at the end of the day, you came to us with something, and I gave you feedback, and that's where I stand. I mean, I think when you look at it, it's a sloppy plot. It's just really, you know, a haphazard approach to trying to develop. I like the development. I like the fact that there's a park. I like a lot of elements of it. But I think as a developer, you haven't spoken with them, you haven't negotiated with them, and I think that's kind of a, you know, a little bit of a black mark in terms of saying, hey, we're doing our diligence.
Yeah, that's just not true. I mean, we've made great offers, and they're thinking about them. I mean, it hasn't been that long. But we absolutely made more than reasonable offers to them, and I think they'll probably do one. I can't speak for them, but.
Do you want to table this until there's a better answer for?
I just think it's really, I think it's a really
forward
dangerous
tonight.
situation to be, you know, you're asking me to annex something that is not for sale. So
I'm just asking for an annexation package that's a very well thought out, very well laid out plat, and it's not. It's choppy. It's got kind of this wedge in there that just creates, you know, issues down the road between town ordinances and village ordinances and other things that now is the time for us to address those. And I know it's not easy for you, but I mean, that's the challenge, right? We want you to develop, and I think at the end of the day, it offers a lot to the village. But, you know, to me, to do it right and take the time to do it right is the right way to do it. And, you know, again, I guess I would make a motion to table if you're willing to come back to us with a complete package for annexation or pre-annexation.
I want to make a comment too, that this is not a reflection of you as a developer. This is a reflection of the dysfunction within the village board itself and what has gotten us to this point. And unfortunately, you're a developer that's kind of caught in the crosshairs.
So there's a motion to table.
I just want to know if you're willing to work on a amended pre-annexation agreement that might address some of that?
Yeah.
Because,
I'll-
yeah.
I'll
Do you-
try.
can you-
Just to
can
include
you-
the details of the article, I think is
Yeah,
the request.
would you be able to like write out the stuff that would get you to a yes so that Rick and he can hammer it out? If, I mean, if it's just,
Include that in the annexation. I mean,
Yeah, I guess my understanding of Pete's comment is just you would, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you could be supportive of it if it had the Bannigan property and annexed basically that entire 40. Is that fair to say, Pete?
Yeah, it chops up the entire future neighborhood, and it's gonna create issues down, it's gonna chop it up, and it's gonna create issues down the road, without a doubt. We wanna work with the town, we don't wanna work against them, and when you've got, you got the whole Meyer Road thing. The other thing is, and we can get into that, I think we need to have conversations with the town about what can we do with Meyer Road, because we've got the issues with what happened up behind GDS, where we've got these stub roads, and there's no throughput, and we've had a lot of conversations, and now's the time to kind of work through that. And I think it's really important for this neighborhood that they've got an outlet down to BB, and that, is another element that I think needs to be included. But I think the challenge as a developer is come to us with a package, and you could probably get more lots in there, right? I mean, the whole thing just adds value. You even said before that property's value would go up as a result of this annexation. And I would say if that was included in the whole thing, the overall package for you as a developer would go up.
The house will remain. I mean, Bill, you can't justify the demolition of a nice house in what I do. But that notwithstanding, I think probably another likely thing, I've got to deal with something I can control. So another likely opportunity is to just kind of change the land I'm purchasing. I mean, that's another viable option to square it off. So I got to kind of go back to the drawing board on what's land I bring in. So I've got a couple options.
yeah, I'm assuming you don't want to annex someone who doesn't want to annex.
Yeah,
Because that's not a good look for you, and you're going to get a lot of pushback on that. But what if, like land Bannigan South was just not part of the pre-annexation agreement?
That's what came to my mind when you said what you said.
Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think some of those pieces have to be worked out, because when you look at Meyer Road, you've got frontage of the Bannigan's property, which in this design is in the town. So now you've got, I don't know, 120 feet of Meyer Road on the east side that's in the town. So as far as services, taking care of the road, I mean, it's just one of those things that the more we can be clean in how we operate with the town, the better. We just don't need any more things where there's potential conflict and things that we got to work out, when now is the time to lay the groundwork to have a clean annexation and avoid a lot of these future issues. That's kind of where I'm at.
So I don't want to have Rick and Steve do a bunch of work that's then going to get shot down anyway. So would you be amenable to leaving out Bannigan South in the pre-annexation
I
agreement?
think we need to see what it looks like when you say Bannigan South.
Do you want to pull the map up on the screen and be a little bit more specific so everyone in the room can see?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Kyla can share.
I mean, I'm not a stormwater expert, so I don't know how much of that you would still need to keep, the blue part. But I mean, obviously the Bannigan farm, and then the residences south of that, I would assume. Oh, okay, that's bigger than I would have thought. But
Yeah, renegotiate what I'm buying and leave that out. And then, I mean, stormwater's got to go somewhere else. It just makes the development smaller, but that might be the easier thing to do if you want to put it on.
And I guess clarifying question, Meyer Road, all of that would be annexed, right? The entirety of Meyer Road?
Yeah.
Yeah.
so just
When you say that, are you talking annexing the responsibility for maintaining Meyer Road all the way to Cottage Grove Road?
No, I'm saying just like the southern lot line of the concept plan. But those improvements would be on the developer to improve Meyer Road. So anything south of Meyer Road would still be, or south of that lot line there would still be the town.
I think the whole plot would change here. The whole thing would get smaller. So that, I gotta do something I can control. That's what I can control. If I can't renegotiate the contract, not buy the whole thing, and then we do a concept plan. But that's what I could do, and we can have a clean line.
And I think the other thing is, it's really important that there's that Meyer Road outlet, and, you haven't had any conversations with the town as it relates to, To me, that's a really important element of it too, is making sure that that connection is there.
Is there some reason to believe the town would, is there some reason to believe the town, I missed that part of the conversation, is there some reason to believe the town would, it's a public road? I never heard of that.
This is the first time I'm hearing that they are going to put a gate up.
Okay, okay.
I
I
can
didn't
reach
say
out to
they-
the town and see.
I didn't say they would put a gate up. There's a potential, and that has been a conversation that has been brought forward as an option on their hand. But they, as a town board, have not officially discussed gating that.
I think we can reach out to the town and see what that,
Just for your background information, there are neighborhoods in our community that have roads stubbed out to them that the town will not grant permits for the connection. So that has been established in other areas existing. So as you make your plans ahead, that may be a consideration.
So it sounds like the pre-annexation is a no-go for tonight, and direction to move forward is to kind of redo the concept a little bit and come back. We have a January 5th meeting.
I do think there's technically a motion on the floor.
There's the motion to table.
Yeah.
There's no second.
I'll second the motion.
So is that,
Yeah, we don't need like an official motion if there's just no action taken
I guess
tonight.
that's the direction from the board, so we can,
Yeah, I don't think we need anything official at this point. We can,
there's a motion and second to table. Do you want to move forward with that?
I'd leave that up to the person who made the motion.
I say we vote on the table motion.
You can roll call.
Benzo,
Aye.
Dahl,
Aye.
Cal Nelson,
Aye.
Murphy,
Aye.
Severson,
No.
Stoa,
Aye.
All right, so we'll move forward. Thank you for coming, and thank you for participating in our discussion. We are in the unfinished business 7B, discuss and consider leasing village property at 123 East Cottage Grove Road. We can enter into closed session if necessary.
1 second, Sydney. I'm gonna let kind of the traffic settle a little bit. Okay, so 123 East Cottage Grove Road. Before you tonight, there's 2 separate lease agreements. Currently the building is leased out to the former owner of the New Tech painting. It is now obviously vacant, and there's been a couple agenda items at prior meetings to kind of discuss. So what this would be is two agreements with 2 different legal entities, kind of segments the space out roughly. It's a 3-year lease with a 12-month notice requirement. For this agenda item, I would recommend going into closed session to further discuss and iron out kind of terms. Rick, did I provide enough summary on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, just for this one. That's enough of a summary, I guess. It's up to the board if they feel like a closed session would be required.
I'd move into closed session for this item at the end of the agenda. Other suggestions?
The next agenda item's super easy if we're onto that. The request to lease 612 North Main Street by Dave has been withdrawn, so there's nothing to consider for 7C.
Okay. Then we'll go into closed session at the end of the agenda. We'll move on to new business, discuss and consider the 2026 Village Board meeting dates. There's a memo in the agenda that outlines all of the 2026 dates for everyone's calendars. I thought we'd get that out to you sooner than later.
I appreciate that, and I think it's great to note when we'd have virtual meetings due to elections and everything, so I appreciate that. I would make a motion to approve the 2026 Village Board meeting dates as presented.
I'll second that.
It's a motion by Murphy and a second by Dahl. And I just want to point out that Tuesday, January 20th, would be the first one that is not a Monday. Make sure that's on everyone's calendar. Any other discussion?
Cindy, I just wanted to point out one thing with the July 6th meeting. That will be mid-construction for the police station, so if there's a change order with the magnitude that a board needs to make a decision, that presents a potential delay in construction. So I just wanted to make sure that was
We could do a
brought up.
special virtual option.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. B, discuss and consider Resolution 2025-27, appointing elections inspectors.
Are there two John Russells? John's on there twice.
Oh, nope, I see that. Not that I'm aware of. This is a resolution we do every 2 years to establish our poll workers. It does give us the capability of adding people as needed, as people do come and go throughout the year.
Lisa, if someone wanted to be a poll worker, what would they do?
That is a great question, thank you. They can contact me. They can also go to My Vote if they are interested, and they can click a little button that says I'm interested. I get an email, and then I reach out to them, and we have a conversation about what it is to be a poll worker. Thank you.
Can I just ask a logistic question? All the addresses are Cottage Grove, and then there's one Sun Prairie and one Madison. Can you tell me about that?
Sure. So we have people, as long as they are residents of Dane County, that can be poll workers within a community. Some of them are people that we receive lists from the political parties that may not be in our community. So that is some of the reasons of why we have poll workers that are not necessarily in the village. There is one individual that has recently moved, but they are still capable, and we have taken the time to do the training with them, so we like to retain them if we possibly can.
Thank you, Lisa, for all the work behind the scenes, training the poll workers. It's one of our biggest undertakings and an important one, and I appreciate all those that step up to work at the polls. All of our democracy, doesn't work without them. So if you want to pass that along to them as well, our appreciation for their work. With that, I'd make the motion to approve Resolution 2025-27, appointing the Village of Cottage Grove election inspectors.
Second.
Motion by Murphy, second by Severson. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Reports from village boards, commissions, and committees. The library board met on Wednesday, November 19th at 6 o'clock. We had our annual election of officers. We discussed developing a mailer of information to village residents that would go out in January. We talked about our strategic plan and process and goals for 2026, which would be to continue investigating a full-time position in physical space, ultimately for 2027, probably beyond that, within the village footprint. We discussed a couple of key programs that would go in the mailer, along with revising kind of our rubric, survey, newsletter, increasing subscribers, and that type of thing. All can be found in our strategic plan, which is on the library board website. We kind of finalized some information about statutory restrictions for a joint library with the town of Cottage Grove, and that is kind of going to live in perpetuity in a memo written by JP that kind of outlines, just so we have that, because that's kind of a repeated question that we get. We had the programming report, which, again, continuing to work on consistency and consistent location. The story times, tween scene, distillery, cookbook club, the Wicked, and family drop-ins have been really good. I do want to highlight that we do have Sensory Santa, which is part of the Chamber of Commerce's Christmas in the Grove. We're going to have our New Year's Eve celebration, and then our all-community read is February 3rd at 6 p.m. at the GRS Library, and books just got in today and will be available soon. And so you can follow our social and sign up for our newsletter and get excited about all of the things for 2026. We had some goal setting in a closed session for our library specialist. Our next meeting is Wednesday, December 17th, which is our annual programming workshop. And that's about it. So if there are no questions about the library board, we can move on to Parks, Rec, and Forestry.
Thank you. We met on Thursday, November 20th. It was slightly off schedule because usually we would have met the fourth Thursday, which is Thanksgiving. So we discussed the Newman Home concept plan in relation to park dedication. Overall, I would say the committee was very interested in the large park and the opportunities that that would provide for the whole community, such as soccer space and field space for various clubs. They thought that having one large park versus smaller parks spread out provided the most flexibility for the department to be able to provide various services. And they also appreciated that it was going to be dedicated in the first part of the development because the current Quarry Ridge development doesn't really have a park. They're served by Willow Run or North Lawn Park after crossing Main Street to get across the street to Parkland. So I think that they conveyed both of those things were positives for the department. We also talked about bike path connections to connect the development instead of using sidewalk in front of some of the homes to make sure that kids could and any users could safely use a multi-use path off street to get to the park. Then we conveyed the award of the bid for the Shady Grove Park that we already approved. And then Sean went over his report. And one thing I wanted to highlight from that was Puzzle Palooza. I don't know if you've ever been to the Puzzle Exchange at MSB. It's awesome. People from all over bring puzzles. We have hundreds of puzzles. Kind of bring a puzzle, take a puzzle. It's a great thing that brings a lot of people together. But we did have a puzzle competition event. There were 2 local teams and 40 teams competed overall. And the winners, and they put together a 500-piece puzzle, 20 minutes. So it was very impressive and very creative group that the recreation department has brought together. So I just wanted to highlight that one particularly. Unless Sean has anything else to add, our next meeting then, because of the holidays, would be in January.
I have a question, if I may, about Puzzle Palooza. Is that just jigsaw? Are we talking like 3D puzzles or any other kind of puzzles, or?
There might be some 3D puzzles in there. It's mostly jigsaw, but there could be maybe some of those 3D building ones.
I think everything we have right now is jigsaw.
Okay.
But doesn't mean we can't go that direction.
Deer Grove EMS Commission, Pete.
We met on Thursday, November 20th at 6:30 at the ESB building. We approved the minutes, the October financials, the bills. We discussed and considered enlisting Johnson Block for the 2025 financial audit, and we approved that. Chief did share with us a nice acknowledgement and appreciation that the Madison Fire and Police Departments had provided for the assistance that Deer Grove provided during the Abundant Life School incident. It was a nice acknowledgement of the efforts. We discussed and approved the posting and hiring process for the Administrative Services Manager. It's posted at the current time through December 12th. We agreed to a 3-person committee for hiring. We did discuss and consider public live streaming in addition to the Teams meeting that we have. But we decided we will just start with allowing anonymous attendance via Zoom. It was the easiest thing to do. We entered 2 closed sessions, one to discuss service to the Cambridge EMS district and another one to discuss personnel problems related to quantity of time worked. We came out of closed session, no action on the Cambridge item, and we did approve a motion to engage Lake Effect Law to investigate and we adjourned.
Any questions on EMS? All right. Natfig landfill, Renee. Anyone?
I was there.
Okay.
We met on Monday, November 24th. It was a very brief meeting, 6 minutes long. We approved the minutes and we approved the bills. There were no new monitoring results this month. Those will come then on regular cycle next time. So we'll talk about those and bills on January 26th.
Any questions on the landfill? Cottage Grove Fire District Commission.
Okay, so we met at 6:30 at Cottage Grove Town Hall on November 24th. We reviewed the chief's report. We did get an update on the building electrical upgrades, which are nearly complete, the building humidifier installation, which is complete. The update on the apparatus bay striping is they're having a little trouble getting the contractor scheduled in there, so that is still unfinished. We did discuss and consider revising or proposing ordinance modifications for both the town and the village regarding false alarms. The town ordinance and the village ordinance were discussed. We got feedback from Chief Hammond and Chief here about false alarms. And so we did provide direction to Chief Gary and Chief Archibald to get together and talk about false alarms. And the goal is to reduce false alarms without disincenting residents from calling for service. I mean, obviously that's something we want to avoid. But again, with our volunteer fire department, the number of false alarms is significant and is demotivating to a certain extent. And so we really need to take a look at what we can do. And a lot of it's going to be education, but we expect to get a recommendation from the two chiefs next month or the first month or the first meeting next year. And then we adjourned.
Any questions for fire?
Did you have more to add?
I just wanted to add on if we need to talk about this in another board meeting, but it was to help draft a new ordinance for the village. So the commission, I guess, they say that we need a new ordinance to help serve, or, so the fire department has better parameters. But I don't know if the direction needs to come from the village board as a whole to direct our staff and legal time to draft that, since our staff and legal don't work for the fire commission, they are on our behalf. So I don't know if that just goes without saying, or if we need to direct our resources to do that. Because the town said, we'll just copy your ordinance, but then it's directing our resources to draft it. So I just want to make sure that that is coming down the right way.
And they don't have budgeted funds through the commission to redo ordinance.
Right, no, exactly. Yeah. And I think the discussion was to get a recommendation on proposed changes. So we're not to that stage yet, but certainly, Heidi, you're correct that that is the eventual outcome, because it is a little lenient in terms of the false alarms.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure we're cautious of our legal budget going into the new year, that we don't want to get too far ahead, or at least plan for what our expenses are going to be.
Yeah, I guess it's not a time-sensitive thing where it needs to be on the next agenda, so I think that makes sense from a process standpoint of getting recommendations, bringing it to the board, and then getting direction from the board on which way it wants to go.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, LEC.
We met on Tuesday, November 25th at 5:30 at MSB. Approved the minutes. We talked about the draft 2026 to 2030 PD strategic plan. We also talked about food pantry donations for people who get parking tickets for once. Has it started yet now? It started today, yeah. Alternate side parking started today. So they can take food to the food pantry, or donate food to the food pantry for, instead of paying their tickets. That goes to January.
First Monday in January.
First Monday in January, which is, I don't know what date that is, but the first Monday in January. We also discussed and talked about the police department social media police blotter. There was a constituent who raised some privacy concerns about it, so we talked about how to balance privacy and transparency. This temporary solution we came up with was seeing how we could do with comments turned off on the social media blotter while still doing the social media blotter. Not sure if that's taken effect yet. And then we got the chief's reports. And then we adjourned.
Comments or questions?
When you referred to the comments being turned off, can you expand a little bit more?
Yeah,
with that?
the thought behind that was if you see there was a domestic disturbance at the 300 block of whatever street, they didn't, the idea was not to have people saying, oh, I bet it was this person or this person, and kind of gossiping on those comments. So still having the transparency of having the blotter there, but not necessarily having a full-on discussion about what those particular incidents entailed in the comments.
I can really appreciate that concern for privacy, but yet, and I'm just kind of playing the devil's advocate a little bit too, you know, if they do hear something, maybe that, hopefully not, but in those types of situations, I guess what I'm getting at is that awareness can be helpful to individuals that are in that situation and experiencing it, if that makes sense, what I'm saying. So again, not identifying people, but let's just say, you know, there's domestic that continues to occur at apartment X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, that I
Yeah.
think is still going to be on the blotter.
Okay,
that is
it's
really-
just
so
not
they're just-
specifics.
Yeah, right.
Perfect. Okay, yes, good. Thank you for clarifying that.
I guess I have just a follow-up question for Chief on that, on like victim protection, because like the people that, like, sure, there's a domestic violence at a location, but like there's a victim of a crime there. So like, how does that balance out, just like to protect people, you know, if you say on certain block, people can hear, you know, a neighbor screaming at a neighbor, like they may know, like, and then that's kind of reveals who victim might be if you live locally. I just don't, like, I don't understand enough about the process to know.
Everything that is on the police blotter is open to public records and would be published in a newspaper. That's the guidelines that we're following. No personal information is released, no specific address is released, and the only thing that is going to be deactivated is truly the comments related to the blotters. Nothing else related to our posts, and we still are accessible if people wish to report something or let us know an incident or anything of that nature in various means.
And they'll still be like, I don't know if you guys do Messenger on Facebook or not, but if you do, I imagine they'll still be able to do that.
Again, whether they call non-emergency or emergency or send a message, the one thing with social media is that is not monitored 24/7. So I'll always encourage, if you have an emergency, utilize the phone and make call to dispatch so we can respond.
I appreciate that, thank you. Because we started talking about it, it reminded me, someone asked me about that a long time ago, so it was good to circle back on that, appreciate it.
I would just like to add, and I voiced this at LEC, I'm not crazy about turning the comments off because I fear the negative repercussions to the police department. You know, there are folks that are going to be, you know, oh, look at the police locking down public comment. So I have a concern about that. I hope that doesn't happen. But, you know, it's like if the village shut off commenting on their posts, I think people would kind of revolt. And so I just don't want the police to get a bad rap for that.
Again, the only comments are turned off on the police blotter. Everything else is still available for comments.
Moving on to reports from village officers, village attorney,
Nothing for tonight.
village administrator.
Yeah, so a couple anniversaries to acknowledge. Our street superintendent, Jason Anderson, had his 1-year service anniversary, and Chief Gary will have his 3-year anniversary here coming up. So That's all I have. Unless there's any questions on the report.
I just had a question. So you attended an Amazon construction progress meeting? How are they coming?
They're, yeah, I included them in the monthly update. They're
Oh, I'm sorry, that's second document.
no, in the separate, like the regular monthly report. Not in what you're looking at. No. No, there's new report. I'm just saying it was in the monthly email memo I sent. But they're continuing to finalize the engineering and design work for the roads with the county, and that should be done by, hope by January, maybe as soon as next month. And then Kyla and Josh will be reporting that back to Public Works and then back to the board. The building itself and all the exterior is substantially complete, and they're working inside. Yep.
Any other comments or questions? Communications and miscellaneous business, consider approval of vouchers with the bills list.
I just had one question. So the Perla asphalt maintenance, what was, it was $6,600. It's just an odd time of the year to do asphalt maintenance. I'm just curious, what was the work?
That was for the patch that we had to do on Dentaria for the water valve and the water main break.
Okay, gotcha, thank you.
Yep.
I would move approval of the vouchers as presented.
I'll second.
Motion by Severson, second by Dahl. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Correspondence, quite a few emails, obviously, about the pre-annexation agreement from today. Any other correspondence? Upcoming community events. This weekend is the Cottage Grove Chamber of Commerce Christmas in the Grove. So there's parade starting at 6 o'clock. 6:30, new parade route this year.
Related to the
Hoping someone will
parade, you are correct. Parade does start at 6:30. The route is been shortened, basically from, it's on Main Street from Progress Drive to the southern East Reynolds Drive. We will have road closure during the parade. That will be starting at 6:15. So, and it is a hard closure, i.e. there will be no traffic allowed until the conclusion of the parade, and we reopen it back up. Notification has been made by the chamber to the residents and the developments down at the south end there, so they're all aware of the closure that's coming. And we look forward to a wonderful time.
And then there's the craft fair on Saturday, there's Sensory Santa Sunday, and then I know chamber businesses have lots of events going on too, and everyone can go on the Chamber of Commerce social or website to see the whole full list of events this weekend. Any other community events?
Property tax bills will be put in the mail on December 8th. Right now they're at production. Anticipated that we'll receive them on Wednesday, and we'll process that and put them in the mail on the 8th.
All right, future agenda items.
I would, seconding, I guess, off Chris's, zoning changes amendments. I'd like that on the next agenda.
You're going to bring that forward?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can do that.
Okay.
Or Paul can do it, doesn't
I
matter.
guess I thought I would. Maybe
We can
let's
talk
each
about-
bring one up.
I'll see you in a couple days anyway. We can talk
Okay.
about the housing thing.
Okay.
All right.
Future agenda items. Working with kind of Ellers on financing the 2026 capital projects. So anticipating to bring the authorization documents February 16th, and with the intent to award the sale on March 16th, 2026. So just keep those 2 dates in your calendar.
Is Ellers ready for our first January meeting with the impact fees?
No, we won't have public feedback. So I avoided, because the study parameters weren't finalized kind of
Okay.
prior to the holiday season. My goal would be to give the full month of January for feedback, both for resident and developer,
Okay.
and then bring the study plus that forward to the first meeting in February.
Thank you.
Moving on, we do not need item 12 or item 14, correct? So I'll make a motion that the Village of Cottage Grove Village Board enter into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, paren 1, paren E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. This is for leasing village property at 123 East Cottage Grove Road, as discussed in item 7B. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, roll call.
Benzo?
Aye.
Dahl?
Aye.
Cal Nelson?
Aye.
Murphy?
Aye.
Severson?
Aye.
Stoa?
Yes.
If